Well, all right. Here it is. Let's begin with a simple disclaimer. The content on this particular video, audio, site, whatever you want to call it, is for informational purposes only. Nothing contained on this particular site constitutes professional or financial advice, nor does it establish a fiduciary relationship. You alone assume the responsibility of evaluating the risk and merits associated with the use of any information on this particular site, video, platform, etc. The information provided is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. I am not a licensed financial advisor. Please conduct your own due diligence, your own research, or consult with a licensed professional before making any financial decisions. Now, we have the beautiful George Trich of 1874 mapping out macroeconomics. Ain't nothing new under the sun. There's a cycle, there's a season, there's a pattern. You can see that we are in year 2026, a B year. And based on your perspective and programming, you'll probably see it as a beautiful year because that's how you should be interpreting things. No such thing as poverty and lack as far as in this particular mind on the other side of this screen here. And we want to relay some of that information and rub off some good vibes so that people can understand the season and timing that they're in. Because if you don't know the season or the time that you're in, you're probably not going to be encouraged to act accordingly. Now, one thing I know is true. In the workplace and in many other places, you don't discuss finances. You should never talk about how much money you're making compared to a coworker and how much money they're making because that can cause some friction. That can cause some problems. We know that we don't discuss finances. And in fact, we don't discuss religion or spirituality, so to speak. It is not a common subject. This is not why we are there. If you want religion or spirituality, go to church on the Sabbath or whatever your religion is. You got freedom to do what you do. But certain places, it's taboo, it's a no-no. And we don't discuss politics. Three key areas and aspects whereby which we are fed. And we can't bring those things into the workplace. Yet at the same time, we are always 100% affected by all three. The great paradox. So let's go into some timing and information because we can see it's a B year, a year of high prices. You've seen the housing market. You've seen gas prices. You've seen the price of eggs. How about inflation? You see the price of gold and silver compared to a year or 2 years ago. Are you paying attention? And notice I mentioned the word gold. So you should have some buzzwords in your head because buzzwords in your head trigger this quantum thinking in your brain. You are sophisticated of a machine, you wonderful thing, you. And we want to start connecting the dots of the things that we don't discuss or talk about: religion, politics, and finances, because we have someone in office who is ushering in this thing. And if you don't feel in your mind greatness, then the programming is bad. You got to throw all that old software junk out because it's containing too many malware, Trojan horses, and viruses in your own thinking and in your own mind. And sometimes you yourself are in the way. And this is the knowledge by which a lot of people are just broken down, broken apart, and destroyed. They just don't understand or know the season and timing. There's nothing new under the sun. What has been, will be, it is what it is. Let's look at some beautiful things. And I don't want to scare anyone when I pull up this picture here. Oh my, what do we have here? Oh, the New World Order. And some people are folding the dollar bills and various denominations of dollars, and they see the Twin Towers, and they see alien faces, and they see all these other things based on the design. But when we look at how nothing can be hijacked from the Lord, what is in God's hand, if He has it, nothing can pull it out. So now, when we look at the original meaning and interpretation, we go back to the original design because these things are coming back around again, full cycle. Trust what I tell you. Trust what I tell you. Novus, Ordo, Seclorum is a Latin phrase, and it reads as translated New Order of the Ages. Right? A lot of people think in New World Order, and of course, they think about the hijackers, the hidden invisible elites that rule in banking, financing, so many other things. But this is a very unique season and time. And when we look at these charts, I bet you'll shut up then. I bet you'll see what time it is then. I bet you'll want to play the game then. Again, not financial advice. All right. It says famously featured on the reverse side of the Great Seal of the United States and the back of the US $1 bill. It signifies the beginning of a new era for the United States dating back to 1776. Now, don't we have a birthday celebration coming up? 250 years as a nation. Okay. So it's good to look at these things. The phrase traces its roots back to ancient Rome and has deep historical and cultural connections. Now we want to show you screen as we look at some of these beautiful pieces of information here. All right. As we look at the information, we can see number one, origin in ancient poetry. The motto was adapted by Charles Thompson, the founding father who designed the Great Seal, from the Roman poet Virgil's Eclogus. Virgil's correction, original text meaning or read Magnus ad integro seclorum nascitur ordo, which translates to the great series of ages is born anew. Very interesting, guys. Virgil wrote this as a prophecy heralding a golden age, buzzword, Trump's ushering in the new golden age of peace and prosperity. And people hate the guy. That's okay. The blind is always going to be blind. And then people may be offended that they don't like the guy and offended at my words that I called you blind. If you want to stay in the ditch, stay in the ditch. It's up to you. But when we look at this chart, I bet you'll shut up then. All right. Meaning of the Great Seal. Placed beneath an unfinished 13-step pyramid and the Roman numerals for 1776, this Roman numeral for it, the phrase was intended to mark the year the United States declared independence, freedom from colonial rule. According to Thompson, it signifies the beginning of the new American era and the dawn of a new era in human governance. Now, you got the New World Order, you got you got so many things, but let's look at the original text in the meaning. Because you weren't back then, you're here now. And your programming may be flawed how you view politics, religion, spirituality, and money. Number three, uses in pop culture. Because the phrase shares a similar literal translation, New Order, with the English term New World Order, it has frequently been a favorite subject of conspiracy theorists. Remember, so many rabbit trails leading people away from the original meaning and intent. Can't erase what God has done, what God is doing. You cannot pluck that out of his hand, even if you don't understand. All right. It has frequently been a favorite subject of conspiracy theorists. In reality, when placed alongside the other Latin motto on the seal, Annuit Queptis, Providence favors our undertakings. It represents the founding fathers' optimistic classical vision for a new republic backed by Providence. And when we read that Annuit Queptis, it says he has blessed or favored our endeavors. Who is he? God. And then you go down the rabbit hole, which God? How about the God of our fathers, our founding fathers? All right. Well, most of them were Masons, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. Who cares, right? It is what it is. All right. Now, since we had this beautiful buzzword heralding a golden age of peace and prosperity, let's look at this. Because we can see President Trump has been announcing some things, even though people don't pay attention. He wants to do many things. I don't want to speak out of turn, but those things will come in the connection with gold, right? And we got the Kim Clement prophecies and so many other things. And we're going to look at these charts because we need a methodology according to George Trich's economic forecast and outlook from the year 2026 down into what, 2032, riding it back up into the B year 2034, because in 2035, pandemic, whatever you want to call it. And you have to be careful with these things as we see it repeating in cycles and pattern seen in Revelation. Let's pay attention. President Donald Trump's golden age is a defining slogan and vision from his second presidential term. He formally introduced the concept during his inauguration, later anchoring it as the central theme of his State of the Union address. So what does this mean? He has dealing with the money. Core administration goals. The vision of the golden age centers on an aggressive platform of domestic and foreign policy goals, which the administration claims will usher in an era of unprecedented national greatness or unprecedented national greatness. Primary focal points are economic revitalization, pushing for rapid domestic energy expansion. Drill, baby, drill. The whole world may be fighting, competing for oil. It is what it is. We can fill our national oil strategic reserves. And whatever you want to say about Venezuela or the Straits of Hormuz, commandeering ships or tolls or whatever it may be, it is what it is. People are coming to us for energy. But after a number of days, we hit a slump in energy as well. So some things are developing which are very interesting in macroeconomics. All right, so we see this here. And protective trade tariffs to reduce core inflation and boost overall economic prosperity. And you always got the narrative, well, it's the American citizens that pay the tariffs. Yeah. People want to yap and complain. And you got to be aware of the programming of those who are constantly complaining. There is a silver lining, and it's good to be programmed to see the silver lining, because out of the midst of chaos, we have order. But that order is from within. Your creator has given you order and structure. So we can always say, out of the ashes comes beauty. Out of the sorrows comes joy. And out of the sadness comes praise. Right? But that's up to the programming. It's up to the individual. All right. Border security. No matter how people feel about the freedom to move from point A to point B, there are laws, there are rules, and these things were always here from the very beginning. It's just to a large extent they weren't enforced because of other agendas. But remember, God's plan, God's agenda, despite the blinders, or you can't see, or it looks like, it's all timing. Border security, implementing strict immigration enforcement, and establishing national security priorities across domestic agencies. National vigor, projecting strength abroad through diplomacy. and trade, coupled with high level investments in the U.S. military. Iran is cracking everything open. The old business model of just constant continuous wars stimulates the industrial military complex, the war machine. And with USAID and so many backdoor, back channel, unaccounted for finances funding our own demise, blockchain, all those things are going to be cleaned up. He's doing something with the golden age. He's talking, dropping breadcrumbs, and not many people are paying attention. Trump's portrayal of golden age is out of sync with how people feel. President Trump celebrates America's new golden age. Social media crossing 500 days of presidential of President Trump's golden age. So that buzzword in conjunction with the era that he's bringing in, not many people are paying attention because they feel a certain way. Your own mind can be your own demise. If there's a virus or a Trojan horse embedded in some software in the recesses of your own thinking, then you have to change how you're seeing and how you're perceiving things so that you can partake and be a part of and celebrate 250 years as a nation coming up in July. Great things. If you're paying attention, don't be around those who complain because their perspective is not programmed for prosperity in an ethical way to the tune of a magnitude of a wealth transfer, something that's in God's hand, and hopefully you're in there too, you can partake. Criticisms, polling data, and economic analysis reflect a skeptical public. Many Americans cite ongoing frustration with high prices for daily living necessities. Don't keep up with the Joneses. You got to play this game. You got to do what you got to do within the capability of what you can do. And what's in your heart will eventually be birthed and come out. If corruption and frustration and a lack of vision and no direction, no compass, no stability, if that's in your heart, of course, you're going to open your mouth, and now the abundance of your heart, you're going to say it. And when you start saying stuff, you release it into the ether, the spirit, the vibration of the air. You are as you think. As a man thinketh, so is he. So you got to be aware of those criticisms. Let's look at what just happened. Certain vaccines, certain pharmakia, interpreted in the coding of the scriptural text, which is like a guideline for human psychology of what happens in certain situations and the divine thing that could protrude out of that. Okay, because we're always looking at the divine. All right, Genesis chapter 15, verses 13 through 15. God made a promise to Abraham, right? His name was Abram at the time. It foretells that his descendants will endure 400 years of enslavement and oppression in a foreign land. And remember, there's 12 tribes. 12. Some people say 11, but there's 12 tribes. However, God promises to judge their oppressors, ensure the Israelites, 12 tribes, leave with great wealth and allow Abram to die in peace at a ripe old age. Now, a promise is a promise. You give me a promise or some assurance, I got the peace. And I can die knowing that the peace that I'm holding on to, that you're going to perform and you're going to do, it doesn't have to occur. It happened in my time or in my era. In fact, many people do the math and it's like, that's not 400 years, folks. As far as the Israelites being enslaved in Egypt, nowhere near 400 years, not enslavement. So it is what it is. Again, cycles. repetitious patterns. Things repeat. Verse breakdown. God tells Abram that his descendants will be strangers and enslaved in a land that does not belong to them, where they will be mistreated for 400 years, prophesying the future Egyptian bondage. Careful, whose interpretation is that? Misguiding misdirections. What the scholars, the scribes, and the Pharisees say? It is what it is. All I know is sometimes things don't line up, and I'm not going to force them or make them to line up. My job is to just take in knowledge and information. Because when it's in there, then you have something to work with. If you become too tunnel vision and you lock out other pieces of information, then how can your information be tested when it can be weighed against so many other things? So we love study. All right. God promises to judge the nation that enslaves them, referencing the plagues of Egypt, and promises that the Israelites will eventually leave with great possessions. Israelites, 12 tribes. How are you going to leave? You're going to leave physically, or are you leaving up here? Up here, and from what you say, how you observe, how you perceive, are you metanoia, changing the way you think? Because the kingdom is in God's hand. And if you don't know, you're destroyed. You believe you adopted something else, your own ideology, how you feel, your perspective misleads you. So we don't want these things to happen. We want to go by what is written. So this is always a good thing to always say what is written. God reassures Abraham personally that he will live a long life, die in peace, and be buried at a good old age. Okay. So Abraham's descendants continue to this very day. Now, as we look at some other things, we can see there is a debate in biblical studies as to whether 400 years refers to the entire period of sojourning, including time spent in Canaan, or the exact duration of enslavement in Egypt, with many scholars interpreting 400 as a rounded approximate number. Okay, so let's look at some more information. Depending on how the biblical timeline is calculated, the Israelites were enslaved or sojourning for either 210, 400, or 430 years. The text provides different numbers depending on the starting point of the calculation. The three timeline interpretations: 430 years, the total time spent. Exodus 12:40 states that the time the Israelites lived in Egypt was exactly 430 years. Biblical scholars often view this as the total duration from the time God made his initial covenant promise to Abraham until the night of the Exodus. Okay. You know, things always start out good, don't they? That's the whole point. No one is just going to be like, come here. It's going to be a slow progression to the lights being dimmed, and your eyes are adjusting to the darkness so much that you don't even see the lights being cut out. That's how you move the crowd. You don't just cut all the lights off at one time. All right, mass psychology. All right, the next one, 400 years, the prophesied affliction. All right, affliction, enslavement, 400 years. All right, you don't count enslavement when you're having a good time and you eating good until somebody start cracking that whip. No, it's hard. Genesis 15:13 notes that Abram's, they put Abram's descendants would be strangers in a country not their own, and enslaved or mistreated for 400 years. That's Bible, right? Many theologians interpret this 400-year figure as a rounded estimate of the timeline, beginning later with the birth of weaning of Abram's son. There you go again. The problems. You scribes and Pharisees are broods of vipers. All right? 210 years. The active enslavement. 210. Wait, it's 210 years of being enslaved in Egypt? Like, this thing hasn't occurred yet? So we're holding on to that information. The act of enslavement, classical rabbinic Jewish tradition, detailed in the Seder Olam Rabbah and cited by commentators like Rashi, calculates the actual physical stay inside Egypt as lasting 210 years because the Israelites were initially welcomed into Egypt as guests under Joseph's rule. You can't be a guest and welcome and a slave until someone starts dimming the lights on you. Right? They were only subjected to harsh labor and severe slavery for a fraction of the total time, roughly 86 to 116 years. That's a big difference. Ain't nothing new under the sun. Cycles, patterns, they repeat. And if it wasn't 400 years then, maybe it's 400 years now. Depending on the translation, the exact words, Ecclesiastes 1 and 9. What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. It's nothing new. Nothing new. Psychologically speaking, nothing new. Physically speaking, nothing new. Okay? Now, Israel is everywhere. It's not just one clan claiming to be, but is not. It's not just one landmass in a certain spot, even though that does become important. But people are Israelites and don't even know it because of the misdirection, the misguiding, not knowing who the lineage is. So the important thing is whether Jew or Greek, rich or poor, male or female, all these things is a changing of the mind so that you can adopt the ideology of what's in God's hand and what God has for you. But the programming has to change. So this is food. Let's eat. And then let's look at these charts real quick. Scripture never states that the physical nation of Israel is the whole earth. However, biblical texts like Isaiah 27 and 6 do prophesy that Israel will bud and blossom and will fill the whole world with fruit, indicating a time when the spiritual influence of Israel extends to all nations. Now, yes, there are many influences in high levels, in high places, CEOs, business owners. The hand is in everything. This is true. And when the lights begin to cut on under the Trump administration, then you got to appreciate what's literally going on. And this is why so many people are having a hard time. If there are insects and bugs, they come out at night, but they are yet attracted to a different type of light. Right? They're attracted to the night light. But there's a different type of light. And when we start to see exposures come about, it's because the promise is coming forth, which is really, really interesting. People don't like to be exposed for their corruption. And we're talking about evidence, not he said, she said, evidence. And this is why it's going to come down so suddenly and so hard on some people that we've deemed as good politicians, good people. Ain't none of these jokers good. Got to be careful what you call good. All right, 400 years. The concept of 400 years of enslavement is a powerful historical framing commonly used to describe the continuous multi-century arc of African American oppression. And remember, 12 tribes, and they were scattered and sold all over the world. So we got to be careful with that Afro-American, African-American ideology or phrase. You got to be careful with the word black. You got to be careful with these things, because to him who has power, has a different mindset, they're circumcised, right? Or maybe there's neither circumcision nor uncircumcision, but a circumcision of the heart is a very important thing. While chattel slavery itself did not last for 400 years, the timeline spans from the arrival of the first enslaved Africans to the ongoing modern struggle of civil rights. Okay, 400 years. The 400-year timeline breakdown. The 400-year framework connects the origin of African presence in English colonies to contemporary systemic inequalities. 1619, bam, there it is. The arrival, the first recorded 20 and odd Africans arrived in Jamestown, Virginia, marking the beginning of African labor exploitation in English North America. 1619 to 1865, just a continual breakdown. And now, maybe there is nothing new under the sun. What was will be again. What's been done will be done again. So even if it wasn't the Israelites in the Egyptian entanglement, 86, 116 years, 400, 430 years, it doesn't matter. The thing that matters are the breadcrumbs that's being dropped by your boy. Man ordained by God for a time as this. Pay attention. He's doing something, and not many people are paying attention. And many people know about the Kim Clement prophecies. Many people know about that, and you can't deny that. You can't beat that. Prophecy still alive in our day. Let's take it to the charts. Mumbo jumbo, sheer chaos. But we have to have something in a season, again, not financial advice, that shows us the ebb and flow of certain assets. And we got to remember there are some things such as blockchain that are coming down the pipeline because of the need for transparency. All right, so we got this common problem, and these things are being addressed whether you like it or not. Inflation is a problem, but it takes a new mindset in order to overcome, because what if the darker gets darker and people adjust to it as the brightness gets brighter, and those with a new mindset adjust to it. Therefore, the divide is always happening. People in their thinking and their thought process is always getting more and more polarized. And we don't want things to be so crazy that people at opposite ends of the pole are looking at each other as the other sect being evil. Yeah, it's a problem. If you call in everything evil or bad, that's a problem with you if you only see that, right? The institutional legacy of these 4 centuries directly correlates with measurable modern socioeconomic gaps between, okay, polarization, right? And I personally don't like it. I don't agree with it. I don't vibe with that because of my mindset, my thinking, and my ideology. Yeah, some things can be there, and some people make it worse by their perspective and their lack of metanoia, a renewed mind, to the tune of their decision making. It's all programming, folks. And if we know what party you're affiliated with, we know how you think. We know how to trigger you. We know how to manipulate you. We know how to control you. We know how to enslave you. But how else can the captives be set free? What if people don't even want to be free? They're getting fed in a jail cell. They're good to go. They're fine. They don't have to worry. They know tomorrow's going to be taken care of. But to be free, to be free, as we see what Charles Thompson did in 1782 with the Great Seal of America, the wealth gap, centuries of unpaid labor, followed by discriminatory housing laws, prevented people who were enslaved, right? Because it's a system whereby which a lot of people fall under problems whenever they go to the bank to get a loan. Certain people with bad credit may not be favored, and certain people with good credit may be favored. But if we have a system of not discussing spirituality, that's a problem because our minds never change. Politics, because we vote just our skin color, who are house Negroes, and they don't do nothing for us, but it is what it is. And we don't discuss finances. This is just a problem. So the wealth gap is by design because of the person who doesn't put themselves in the position to receive knowledge. Today, the average family, average white family holds significantly more net worth than the average black family. The average black family is torn apart because of their own choosing. They make poor decisions. And those decisions, it's like as one person said, a mighty, mighty bear born inside of a cage. And it's wandering around the four walls of the cage. And its owner comes, gives it food, feeds it. And then one day, the cage door opens. And there's the mighty bear still walking around in that same ideology, that same concept, that same cage. So who cares who caused it? The thing is to recognize it and to say, I want to get up and I want to get out of here. All right. Criminal justice. Oh, geez. You don't want to be a part of that. The 13th Amendment's loophole allowing forced labor for convicted criminals birthed convict leasing in the late 1800s. The historical pipeline heavily correlates with modern mass incarceration disparities. Of course it's there. Of course. It's a system whereby which people get paid to build jail cells and prisons. It is what it is. Health outcomes, very sad. Most of our food supply with processed foods and so forth is bad for everyone. But it gets really interesting because we go down this rabbit hole and it gets very interesting. Let's keep looking. Historical medical exploitation and current environmental racism, placing toxic facilities near black neighborhoods, correlate with higher chronic illness rates and lower lifespans. This is something that is skewed, in my opinion. It's skewed. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but you got nuclear power plants all over the United States. You got a whistleblower scientist, still hard to find, but she's on YouTube, and she overlays the breast cancer incidences of the United States over the map of nuclear facilities over the United States, and there's a high concentration of incidences of breast cancer coming off those areas. And everybody lived there, right? It's like New York, everybody is there. The whole melting pot. And sure, you got some communities that are predominantly white or predominantly black, but it's not a black or white thing. It's deeper than that. This is a individual mindset ideology thing. Cultural and economic impact. Despite 400 years of structural disadvantage, Afro-Americans have profoundly shaped global culture and American identity. I mean, that could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing too. Pop culture sucks. Economic engine. Enslaved labor scaled the global cotton, tobacco, and rice markets effectively, financing America's transition into a global superpower. True, true. But at the same time, everybody had to work. Unfortunately, some people had slaves, right? And some people were owners of slaves. Whites and blacks were, right? But who wants to be free is the question. Because now you're looking at an opportunity. And you ain't going nowhere. You're not going to see the kingdom of heaven if you don't forgive. You ain't seeing nothing, right? You may do things in your own power, in your own way, but are you in God's hands? Are you in good hands? That's the question. Cultural innovation, spirituals sung by enslaved people laid the groundwork for nearly all modern American music genres, including blues, jazz, rock, and roll, gospel, and unfortunately hip hop. That used to be so cool and so innocent back in the day. They used to sing about food, that just the simple stuff we used to love. Now it is just people don't sold their soul. Democratic progress. The continuous 400-year struggle for black liberation consistently forced the United States to expand its definition of freedom, constitutional rights, and democracy for all citizens. Rights and privileges. Interesting in the court of law. Revelation 18:23. Now you tell me if this is a mindset thing or if some individual races are systemically being snuffed out. All right, if God made a promise to 12 tribes, he made a promise. But Israel is the whole earth. And even though some people don't like that interpretation, who care what the theologians say, to the point of you trying to superimpose how you've referenced scripture when you can't even get 400 years enslavement of Egyptians right. Okay, the biblical fall of Babylon. Babylon, a system by which people operate in. And you can call it barter and trade, buying and selling. You can call it whatever you want to call it. But this ultimate system of control is enslavement system. All right? Because anytime the lights are cutting out and you have to get this work in so that you can eat, and you got time for nothing else, you're a slave. Especially if spiritual food is there and you don't have time or energy for spiritual food, you're enslaved. But who you going to blame? Blame your mama and your daddy. Blame yourself. All right. And some people can't read and write, but yet there's plenty of videos. It's like, you got the sun, the moons, and the stars in the sky. You don't have an excuse. But we got the biblical fall of Babylon, represents the collapse of a deceptive, centralized financial system, which correlates directly with the modern shift toward open blockchain transparency and ISO 20022 compliance. And Revelation 18:23 just happened, folks. 2019, latter year, November, December, moving into 2020, that little thing, that little thing, that little drug, that little, that's this right here. And if it's not, it's a cycle of repetitious pattern that's going on. In Revelation 18:23, the text describes the ultimate downfall of a global entity. For thy merchants were the great men of earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. And when you look at the word sorceries, that's pharmacy, folks. That's the interpretation thereof. In that Greek word, you can look it up. And it's telling you again right here. When viewed through the lens of political economy, Babylon symbolizes an opaque, predatory global establishment built on hidden transactions, monopolistic control, and systemic corruption. Well, shucks. USAID, DEI, for votes, a permanent democratic vote, a mindset. People don't want to do better. They follow cultural. The Babylonian system of modern finance, the historical and symbolic concept of Babylonian financial system refers to a centralized, debt-leveraged, and opaque economy. The word sorcery of secrecy, sorcery. The Greek word used in sorcery and revelation is pharmacy. Stop right there. Pharmacy, drugs. By this thing, the whole world was deceived. The whole thing. That's the word. They couldn't come out and tell you because it's written in code. All right. So you could just reread that. We know what happened in 2020. And you read it again. For the merchants were great men of the earth, the CEOs, the presidents, the politicians, the influencers, the news media, the soothsayers, the divination. For by their drugs, their pharmacies, were all the nations deceived. And you keep reading that scripture and you keep interpreting and you know it's showtime. And this makes sense with going back to the founding fathers, a new golden age, and Trump wanting to audit the gold in Fort Knox and so many other things, introducing us to blockchain. Now, that's already long-winded, but we had to lay that foundation because out of ashes, beauty, out of sorrows, joy, and out of sadness, praise, out of chaos, order. And we can see, just as we look at so many beautiful things, got time just compressed here, as far as trading, you have to have a system whereby which you get your up and comings, beating inflation in trading, looking at the oscillations, the ups and downs of certain assets that just pivot all day long, back and forth, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, decade by decade. Just, you're in the best time in the history of the planet. And look at this asset. Let's go to a one-day chart and look at these moves that are occurring on the macro. With just one of the assets that can be considered ISO 20022, the introduction of blockchain and what's happening in banking under the radar when you research the blockchain buzzwords ISO 20022. And we just have just the most beautiful things going on. When you begin to look at this piece of information, you can't help but be encouraged because many people now have the tools to bring in what we call a wealth transfer. They've picked up a skill and they're riding the coattails of transfers. As the lights really begin to come on, not the dark light, but the real light of knowledge and information begins to cut on. And as your mind begins to be renewed and reprogrammed, and we get rid of the viruses and the Trojan horses and the sorceries of our day, the divination, the belief of just the programming of social media and the news media and how people are so easily manipulated and triggered, and how they keep the people in general away from the three most critical components in their life that's always affecting them: spirituality or religion, politics, and finances. Like, people are paying attention now. Let's go to a one-day chart. And we can see just this big move here out of what's called the golden zone. In the golden zone, you have a general golden zone with a red border and a very aggressive golden zone with a yellow border. It's all yellow or golden. When you leave these boxes, you go up in price. So we left two boxes here and we went up in price. I'm just going to measure the bottom of the box here. This is a candle. Every candle represents one day. And it wick down within that 24-hour period. But when the day closed and we got to the next day, then it went into the next day. Okay. So when we left this yellow bordered box, the price went up. That's the rule of the golden zone. When you leave the boxes, the price goes up. When you enter the boxes, the price goes down. So these can be just really good times to accumulate and buy digital assets. Remember, tokenization is coming as the price dips and go back up again. We're just going to take the measured move, and let's say, I don't want to put a price point on it, but you put a certain amount in, and 9 days later you get back 18%. Now, depending on what exchange you're using, and I don't want to mention any exchanges, depending on what exchange you use, they're going to take a certain percentage. And the percentage is probably not going to be extremely heavy or hefty, but you have to do your own research and realize what's the best exchange to buy this particular asset, and perhaps maybe even another exchange or time period sell the asset. 18%. Now, if you were doing this repeatedly over and over again, and it doesn't have to be on the day time frame, but it can be on a 2-day time frame. It could be on a 1-week time frame, because these opportunities, they may not come as large as they would every day. You see this little box right here? That's almost the same thing we saw on the 1-day chart. We leave this box, it goes up. We leave this golden zone here, it's going to go up. Just like we left the golden zone here, it went up. Just like we left the golden zone here, it went up. And we can see typically we're near the bottom of the markets. If we were to compress time in this particular zone, look, it's red hot here. We've come down so much. We're bearish. And we're bearish and bullish all throughout. But there's the peak zones, right? That's when things are going up. And then there's the golden zone when things are going down. So the golden zones are always areas of interest, because that's when you want to accumulate assets, because when you leave these boxes, you go up in price. Let's look at a 1-week chart. And of course, the picture is you're still in the golden zone. If we leave this box with this particular asset, we will go up in price. And we see that we are in an aggressive golden zone. You were in one here, and when you left that box, the price went up, but you were still in the general golden zone. Let's just take the measurement of this one here, this line to this wick. 14 days, 18.5%. That's really, really nice. And sometimes you see that just that little small measured move, these moves can be huge and they can be big. All right. And of course, we can look at this on any time frame. Things adjust to how we want to trade. The peak zone. Oh my goodness, look at the peak zone. Beautiful. Beautiful run where every candlestick now represents 6 hours or 45 minutes. It all depends on how you're looking at things. But this makes things easy as people begin to look at it. And of course, there are all types of algorithms and software, and so many people in the community who want to help you out, not necessarily true clickbait, but just getting you started. There are people out here ready to shine light and give you spiritual food, as someone has done towards me all my life. And my mother was instrumental in guiding us through that process to the point where we can be adults who are weaned and have personal responsibility to ourselves, to our programming, because you have to watch what comes in here. You have to watch what you see, you have to watch what you hear, and you have to watch what you say, because words are very, very powerful. The most powerful things on the planet usually are words. Let's look at any asset. I always say the chart layout is a chart layout. We're going to remain on the 1-day chart. And let's go make sure we're here on the 1-day chart. We're in the 1-day chart. We have so many beautiful assets that we can always look at and interpret and just know when we're in a particular season. Now, I want you to take note of the bottom of the markets in the form of what's called a pi cycle bottom. Let's make sure that indicator is turned on, because I see a pi cycle bottom there. Pi cycle bottom indicator is turned on. We can see we're in the golden zone. The markets have been cooling down. This is on the 1 week chart, just from week to week. Just this random asset here, ZBCN out of South Korea, a great asset. What if you were collecting week after week in the golden zone? And you dollar cost average, 100 here, 50 here, 20 there, 1,000 here, 10,000 here, whatever your mindset is. And once you leave this particular area, because you collected during, then you go up and you hit a peak zone. And here we have 35 days, 68.7%. So the credit card companies know this. They know all about the power of interest. The mortgage company knows this. The automobile industry, they know this. And this is why they're always trying to encourage you to clean up your credit and extend credit to you. But when times are hard, it causes you to focus. Where is the silver lining? And that's good, because now you're hunting for knowledge and you're hunting for information. And the truth is everywhere. It's always in front of your face. And you don't want anyone helping you interpret the truth in a misguided type of way. You got to be very critical of things like that. You got to be careful what comes in your gates, folks. All right. So we can see from rising to falling, the chart is so easy to read until it just doesn't make any sense. It's so easy to read. Now we're looking at a 1 day chart. There's always opportunities in here. Every few days, there's opportunities. Some are explosive. Look at it. You accumulate in what we call the green, the gap, the green, the green. Every few days, there's opportunity, especially when things are going up, and there's opportunities when things are going down. There's just opportunity. Golden zone, leave the golden zone, price goes up. Golden zone, leave the golden zone, price goes up. Golden zone, leave the golden zone, price goes up. Now in this one, when things are going up, you leave the peak zone, the price goes down. So when you're not in the peak zone, you're accumulating. 5 days, 27%. The price dips or goes down. 2 days, 9.35%. Price dips, 14%. In 4 days, price dips, 50%. 8 days. Price dips. And you just do it back and forth and back and forth. This, for many people, can be the 30, the 60, and the 100-fold blessing. You take something really small, and now you learn the power of compounded interest. And sometimes it's just good knowledge and information that brings people to wanting a system whereby which they can truly understand the ebb, flow, and tide of so many digital assets. So Trump is doing a beautiful thing. He's causing the child born to have a fund that invests in the markets. These things are unheard of. And again, when we talk about stimulating the economy, let's see the fall of Babylon. What do you mean the fall of Babylon? Not overnight. Until the transition comes, it can still be abrupt. But so many people, since the onset of Bitcoin and so many other digital assets, we know the transition is here. That, for many people, could be like the ark of safety while people are drowning in finances and debt. Yeah, not everybody out here is struggling, man. And you just got to play these games. You want to find out what other people are doing and find your niche, find out where you fit in. And you got so many beautiful educators coming online, pouring out education for free. Education, so many things free. Now, some people sell products and services. It's a beautiful thing. But the chart breakdown, I think you can clearly understand, what if you were looking at just a beautiful system and you understood when you're in the golden zone, you accumulate and you leave it, price goes up. So when things are low, we love it. And when things are high, we love it. And this is why we appreciate George Trich's economic forecast. Is just a beautiful macroeconomic piece of art. And so many people are using the there's nothing new under the sun concept, and they're making huge leaps and gains. And when they're doing that, they're shining and spreading light, knowledge, and information. You got to let all the stuff deterring you from real education go. The bitterness, the jealousy, the hate, the prejudice. Those things, they cloud judgment. They stop real knowledge from coming in. You become tunnel vision into darkness. You can't see kingdom that way. You can't see kingdom. There's so many people out here wanting to help other people that you can't even see it. And so much that you don't even know how to ask. You think somebody owe you something? Nobody owe you nothing. If you ask in the right attitude, in the right spirit, and in the right way, your creator is there to help you. Remember, God loves you, Jesus Christ. Though people say he was a figure of speech, you don't believe someone was there to take your place, to save you from poverty, lack, all the negative forces out here that we fight against. You don't think someone came out here to teach you a better way? Teach. All right. So if you're going to learn, you got to be a student. So not a student to me. A disciple is a student. You be a student of knowing what time it is, getting under some good education, some good spiritual interpretation, and you research and you study and you dig and you open up your mind and you believe in yourself by first believing in your creator. And you ask, you knock, you seek, you ask. You knock, you seek, you ask. You meditate. You knock, you seek, you ask, you meditate. If something is true, if someone's gave you a promise and you don't receive it, you don't want it, you don't even look for it, it can fall in your lap. And next thing you know, you didn't take care of it. You didn't appreciate it. You didn't honor it. You know, so many people have been millionaires, and 3 to 5 years later, they fell apart. They were in a worse situation now than they were 3 to 5 years ago when they first got the millions of whatever it was. They partied. They didn't know. They didn't know. They didn't know how to handle it. Now we're in a season of time where people are looking for something, and hopefully for those people who are looking, light is cutting on. Real light. Real light is power. And when you have knowledge, who can touch you, right? When you have knowledge, who can touch you? Who can deceive you when you have knowledge? And plus, when you have knowledge on the right investments, and of course, the things I'm looking at, so many investments. I'm scrolling through on the right-hand pane, so many investments. These things, it's just in your face. Ford will eventually become an icon, right? And let's look at Ford over the next few months. Look, you're in a peak. Ford was really, really low just a few days ago. And I call that a few days ago. May the 4th, 2026, sitting at 11 bucks. Peaked out to about 17 bucks in just a matter of days. And many people have cell phones in their hand. Robinhood is a great, great app. Again, I don't want to call any platforms out by name because I have no affiliation as far as agreements with these guys. So, great platform, right? And you come into some knowledge and you play this game, because if you don't have a handout to receive, how are you going to get this great overflow that was promised? So you have to make sure you put your hand out digitally so you can receive the digital overflow. And that takes knowledge and education. And you can see here, that's 51%. That didn't make the news, folks, right? And now we're possibly going to be looking at an increase before we hit maybe another golden zone. These are some just really good things going on. But, you know, they come on TV and say the Dow Jones has lost $1 trillion a day, $100 billion, and everybody, we're just all out here struggling together. No, we're not. Don't believe the lie. Play the game. All right. Again, not financial advice. I'm not asking you to invest or recommending anything. I'm just saying it's easy to look at the ebb and flow of the highs and lows of digital assets. And tokenization is going to be big, and ISO 20022 is going to be big. And like so many people, they're looking at opportunity just on a massive scale. The opportunities are insane. And one right investment in the right place could be life changing. So I'm encouraging everyone to study, do their own research, play the game, play this beautiful game. So many things are at a market bottom compared to, I call this a fragmentation grenade. Pi cycle top or pi cycle tops. Multiple moving averages peaking out the tops of markets. Just beautiful. And so once we hit the top, it is what it is. We always have pivots and divots and pivots and divots. There's always a trade going on somewhere. There's always money to be made somewhere. With the understanding of using indicators how to read the chart, we might as well say a 6th, 7th, 8th grader can do this. But again, it's that financial piece many of us have never had. We don't talk about it. We're programmed not to. And so consequently, these things can be areas of disgust for many people. Politics. I don't want to talk about politics. So you don't want to see what's going on. You don't want to see what people are doing. I don't like this president or that president. I like the one that, people are deceived all day. And the problem is when you're deceived and you don't know you're deceived, that's a problem. If I turn on the TV, the news media, and they're not causing me to increase, turn it off. Just totally turn it off. But the investor mind is like when you get to the point, you start hearing certain things on TV and like everything's a trade. Everything is a trade. Everything is a trade. And to see the general public emotionally moved and so forth, those things are big. Look, something I want to show you right here. On a 2-day chart, I wished I had something that wasn't as compressed. All right, let's just look at a 2-day chart. I want to see if I have something I can take off and another I can put on. Let's put on something called the moon phases. All right? Remember Michael Jackson's movie Thriller? His video? You see that moon phases right there? I'm going to put that on the chart, and you see the full moon, and you see the new moon. You see the full moon, you see the new moon. You see the full moon, you see the new moon behind the bearish tag here. And you see the full moon. Well, you see the full moon here. Now, what do you notice just with that alone? And that's just the last few cycles I've showed you. You can see that with your own eyes. If, generally speaking, the moon has a gravitational pull on the Earth's oceans, high tide, low tide, that's the liquidity, then you don't think it has a psychological approach on the way the system is designed? Thanks to George Trich and so many other beautiful macro economists, the movers and shakers of our day, you don't think things have a pattern many times in nature? What was, is, and shall be. There's nothing new under the sun. It doesn't happen every time that way. But this is very interesting here because typically speaking, after that full moon has come in, there is a likelihood you can leave the golden zone here. And I'd also like to say the 1 and the 3 golden cross is about to usher in, or wants to usher in, the 2 and the 6 golden cross to paint the candles from yellow which has a downward trajectory, to blue, that can indicate an upward trajectory. And just coming out of the little box could be a beautiful move. Who's ready? Not financial advice, because the price can go down some more. It can dip. But the investor loves it, because then when you know what you hold, you just keep moving forward. With that said and done, Percy Corn from sunny Jacksonville, Florida. And I'm going to keep playing this game. I'm going to keep rocking it till the wheels fall off. And I'm going to keep taking in knowledge and information from my fellow peers on YouTube who are just so wonderful and beautiful about sharing their perspective, their ideology and their thinking and their chart analysis. Just so many beautiful things to see. Let's put my chart back to the original way it was. Yes, I love indicators. You know, everyone's got their own thing, right? I don't like to use indicators because they're usually trailing what's going on after the price has already moved. And you believe that if you want to. And you'll never set yourself up for the anticipation of leaving a golden zone and heading into a peak zone or whatever it may be. And this is one I initially put on. And it's got so much information on here. This is my beautiful chaos right here, right? This is my beautiful chaos. My whole chart talks to me, right? Someone else can look at it as mumble jumble, but it's one thing when someone is telling you something for clickbait, and they produce videos every single day, sometimes 4-5 times a day. And it's all interesting. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, the markets can go up on you and go down. And you're looking for 5,000% or you're some massive increase when it's just the light is coming on a little brighter and brighter every day. And sometimes people just aren't taking advantage of simple moves. Look, I always say, worst case scenario, play the game, 50 bucks in, such a small sacrifice for those who are unbelievers. And if kingdom, knowledge and information, doesn't work for you, then at least you proved it. But if something is valid and if it works, then you don't just abandon it right away. You make yourself better. Where did I mess up? Where were my emotions whenever I did this? Did I superimpose and anticipate incorrectly? Did I not read or understand the chart correctly? Did I have an if then that scenario? If then that scenario? Did I see what could potentially happen? Did I understand? Understanding is very important. And the average layperson, with just a small amount of time, can watch some videos and receive a quality education. Next thing you know, they're building their beautiful chart layout just like mine. Just like mine. And then the understanding opens up, because when we talk about compounded interest, I have a question to pose to you. When we start to look at compounded interest, what is 10% of $500 compounded? I want to say every 10 days, but let's just say every 25 days for 2 years. Okay. And the amount could vary, right? It could be a smaller or larger amount. It could be something small. And small is just a mindset, an ideology of thinking. 10%, well, I showed you that in the chart. And, we were on a 1-day and a 2-day chart. Let's look at the power of compounded interest and see if AI answers it. Now, we probably need to include if the interest is rolled over into the main part, but we did say compounded, so. Okay, so maybe were we not in AI mode? Are we not gonna get that answer? Do I have to go somewhere else to ask the question? Maybe I don't know how to use AI mode, folks. Okay, let's ask it again. Maybe we're just in the wrong spot. Let's see, what is the amount after 2 years? Okay, so obviously I need some question marks here, but it may or may not do it. This will be the question that you would pose. And of course, you can see where you are. A small amount, and 10% is, it is what it is. It can be high or low in your mind. And of course, the same amount after 2 years, keep in mind you probably got to pay your taxes on it and stuff like that. But this is just a beautiful time where, let's say, $500 pays off after 4 or 5 years, a new car, the same principle, the ideology and the concept of your labor, and you're giving your labor away and you're not investing is a problem for a lot of people. So many people are spending, and it's like, beware of the consumer mindset, right? You spend your labor away, or you put your finances in the hands of someone else who can't do a better job than you. Your health, your finances, your political, your spiritual, your financial, all in the hands of someone else because you're too busy. When you look at things directly, you see where you could have been losing money, and then it becomes a challenge, right? It becomes a hobby. And some people are saying, oh, that's nothing. I don't have time. I don't understand it. Fine. Find your niche, because a promise is a promise. And you have to have a way to receive. You have to enlarge your own tent. All right, with that said and done, let's just end it right there.